Alright, so, there seems to be a trend where IM makers are getting really into making true wireless stuff. KZ just recently made these, which are like the KZ VXSs, I believe. And, this is their shot at like the $50, $60-ish market for like true wireless earbuds, and so far so good. I think they're pretty decent. Let's talk about it. I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a bit of a change of scenery. I'm a little further from the table this time, but I might just go back to the table. But so far, I kind of like it, I guess. But, back on the product itself, I should let you guys know that this was sent out to me for review, but this won't affect my review in any way, shape, or form. Anything you're going to hear is going to be my own personal opinion. So we're going to be more focused on, like, the gaming aspects of the product, while, looking at the audiophile bits and, explaining how, that may affect its abilities in gaming and whatnot. So with that being said, let's get started. Alright, starting with the box, it's pretty simple. So let's just skip that part and open it up, and we're going to get the earbuds in the case, as well as a cable to charge it with, some extra ear tips, as well as a manual. Starting with the case, it's pretty simple, though it is fairly nice with the window inside. It's all plastic from top to bottom, as well as all around, aside from the USB-C charging port in the back. Opening up the case, there's that little pairing button down there, and if we do check on the earbuds themselves, they are magnetically attached to the case, which is pretty standard for true wireless earbuds these days. The earbuds themselves are mostly plastic with metal where the emblem is, which is also where the touch controls are, and these work actually surprisingly well. The inner side of the IEMs has that molded IEM design so it can be more comfortable in your ear, and I can confirm it feels pretty nice in the ear, and sits in quite well. Under the ear tips, we'll have a metal nozzle with, of course, a grill to keep your earwax out. Alright, now before we get into the sound of these guys, we'll have to talk about like its wireless capabilities and its battery life, of course, because that's important when it comes to like wireless earbuds. It's just kind of how things go. So these things are running off like Bluetooth 5.2, which is already a pretty good start, and they can run on aptX in case you're using an aptX device, which gives, better sound quality and better latency. But in case you're not using that, or if you just, still want that lower latency anyway, like to further amplify that, these things do have a high power mode, in which case they'll like, lose a little bit of battery life, but will give you lower latency, which is the mode you'll be using if you're going to be watching movies or playing games. Now, the battery life of these guys runs are like around 5-ish hours if you're on like the regular standard mode, listening to music at around 50%-ish volume, which I stayed around because these things already get pretty damn loud, which is pretty good. But if you are going to go more than 50% in the volume, you can expect the battery life to be less than 5 hours, floating between 4 to 5 hours. And like if you're using high performance mode, it'll be around like the 4-hour mark. That's how long these things will go for. Considering the price point we're at, I'd say that's like okay-ish when it comes to like the battery life compared to like other things out there, in conjunction with like the sound quality we'll be getting from these guys. But I always would like more battery life, but from what we're getting, I'd say that's passable, especially considering the price we're paying. Now, if you're going to be using these guys like outside of gaming and music and whatnot, and you're just using them for calls, then you'll be glad to hear that you can use them individually. You don't just have to like stick to using one specific one. I dropped it. But you can switch in between them. So if you're using one for the call and it runs out or it's running low, you can just swap to the other one and use that, and you'll be good to go. You switch back and forth, so that's always good to have. Alright, now for those of you who are curious, this is how the microphone's going to sound. It's like not the most spectacular thing in the world. It is passable. It'll do, and this is essentially how you're going to sound if you're making calls. Alright, now we're in a slightly lower environment. I'm making tonkatsu ramen, and my range is going. I got some fire going. Well, propane essentially. You got stuff boiling here and there, and there's a lot of noise actually in person, so this is how it's going to sound in a slightly louder environment. While I'm at it, I might as well show you that, how they look like on my ears, and, they're kind of on the larger-ish kind of side for a set of, like, true wireless buds, due to the fact that they have to fit a battery into, like, the IEM kind of look, but, it's not, like, too offensive, luckily, and, when it comes to the fit of them, I'd say it's actually quite comfortable. They're not too large, about average size when it comes to, like, the actual depth of an IEM, and I'm able to essentially wear them for very long periods of time without any discomfort, at least for me, where I have kind of medium-sized-ish kind of ears. I think these would fit most people's ears quite well without too much of a problem, depending on what, ear tip size you use, but once again, your mileage will vary depending on what size ear tips and what size ear hole and, ear shape you have, but I think it should fit most people just fine, unless your ears are really tiny. Alright, now let's actually dig into, like, the sound of these guys. So, as one would expect, these have a funner sound, of course, but these are surprisingly good. I was honestly shocked, but I guess it does make sense considering that they are made by an IEM company, that they would have a really good sound. At this price range for a wireless set of true wireless earbuds, I wasn't expecting a lot out of these guys, but these things are really good. So like overall, you're gonna get a funner sound, of course. You're gonna get a lot of bass, of course. You're gonna get a little more of the highs and whatnot, but it's not like a really deep V. It's like a light V where there's only a light recession in the mids. There's a really big boost in the bass regions in particular for these guys, and a slight boost in the highs. And the main focal point of these guys is definitely the bass region. It is very powerful. That low end is so strong, giving a really good oomph, the feel is super there. Someone who's really into those really deep basses that have a lot of feel and power would really enjoy these. So like, I think a bass head would really enjoy these, and even a normal person who isn't a bass head would still enjoy it, because I wouldn't say the bass was ever like really overwhelming, at least to me, but you know, I do kind of like bass, so maybe to someone who really hates bass, they will find the bass to be overwhelming, but I found the bass to be fairly clear and relatively controlled for what it was, especially in like the deeper ranges of the bass, especially reaching to sub bass, which it does have a really good deep reach into. As it goes up to the upper basses, sometimes it was not as good in terms of like the sound quality, but it still had a pretty good punch, and overall I'd say it was decent. But you know, overall for the bass, damn good. Mid-range is a little bit recessed, but it's clear enough. It's not like the most magical thing in the world, but for a true wireless earbud at this range, I'd say it's pretty damn good. And it wasn't like muddied up by the bass, wasn't like destroyed by the bass at all. Like, yeah, the bass is very powerful, but I wouldn't say it overrided the mids like entirely. The mids still came out fairly well. Like, sure, the quality isn't as good as maybe some people would like, but this just makes the sound kind of like more along the lines of being smooth, I guess, with that relaxed-ish kind of like position it's at. The highs were well controlled despite, you know, being a little bit boosted. I didn't find them getting too harsh. It would go fairly high, but it wouldn't get to a point where it would like, you know, shriek and hurt my ears and, you know, be sibilant essentially. Though, you know, I wish there was more details, but that's asking a lot at this point, especially at this price point. So, you know, while you do get like a good amount of detail in the highs, I wouldn't say it's like the most clean highs I've ever heard in the world, but for what it is, it's still pretty good. So, you know, overall, I'm very surprised by the quality that we're getting. So I would definitely say the quality of sound that we're getting out of these at this price is definitely above the tier, the general sound that we're getting at this price range, if that makes sense. Like, these things essentially punch above their belt. Now, as for a soundstage of these guys, it's very wide. It was considerably wide for, like, you know, a set of earbuds and a set of wireless earbuds for that matter. Like, you know, of course, it's gonna be more wide than it is, like, deep. The height was just whatever, but when it came to like the sheer, you know, general size and the width of it, it was fairly large, and it's noticeably large on the width side, especially for an IEM. You know, it's not gonna meet like a headphone size of like you know, soundstage, but for an IEM, it's pretty expansive, and I did like that very much. Now, the imaging was just okay, it was passable, and you know, this was definitely noticeable in games where it was just, you know, it's good enough. It'll get you through when you're playing games. Speaking of games, by the way, when you go to the high performance mode where you get lower latency, you don't get lowered sound quality, which does happen in some other sets. It seems like we're finally getting to that point where like true wireless buds can finally like have low latency by just, you know, boosting the amount of power they're using without losing details and like, you know, quality and sound, which is nice. Though, you know, this does, like I said, affect the battery life, where normally you get 5 hours if you're doing this with 50%, you know, volume and you're listening for music. Going to the full power mode will drop this down to around 4 hours. So, you know, you keep that in mind. But on the bright side, do we get that low latency? Now, I should also note, I didn't just use these playing games on like, you know, like mobile or on like my Nintendo Switch, which can now use Bluetooth. I used this a lot on my PC games, which was surprising because it still worked very well and the latency wasn't so bad when I was using that, you know, whole full power mode. It was barely noticeable, which is good, you know? That's surprising to be able to use on all these different platforms and be okay. We're in a good spot with these true wireless kind of stuff, you know? When it comes to the sound of these guys in gaming, I would definitely say these are much better suited for non-competitive games. The imaging is just not quite as good as I would like for competitive shooters. It is passable, it is workable. You can use it for competitive shooter games. I just wouldn't use it very seriously, and even then, despite the fact that it does have a lower latency and it's barely noticeable, if you're a tryhard sweat, you would definitely be better off using something that has much lower latency that's guaranteed, using like a USB dongle or just, you know, going straight up wired, because there still is a little bit of lag if you look really close for it. But if you're just playing it casually, then you're not really gonna notice it very much, or not even care that much, which is why I think these are much better for more casual gaming situations. So, you know, if you're playing shooters, you're playing competitive games, then, you know, make sure you're using it for like a casual situation. Don't go playing these in a sweaty situation. It's just a bad recipe for disaster. That being said, in like non-competitive games, that's where these things shine, and that's definitely has to do with like the sound signature just being so big. The bass just gives so much oomph to the sound. The world is just great, and because the mids and the highs are tuned the way they are, you still get some of those details here and there. Yeah, it's not like the crispiest thing you'll ever hear in the world, but considering what we got, it's still a very enjoyable experience. Just a lot of oomph, a lot of just a lot of feel in the sound, and this makes it just really good for those non-competitive situations, those open world kind of games. And when it comes to like those competitive situations, sometimes these sounds can be a bit distracting. The bass being so powerful will definitely kind of be overwhelming at times, and like cover up sounds, in which case you might get killed because those booms were covering up those footsteps that you're trying to listen to. So, you know, there is that. Being what they are at the price that they are, I would say these things are actually very good, but definitely are more for like casual gaming if you're going to be using these for gaming, which makes sense. These things are more music oriented with just that little extra trick in case you do want to play games with them. And as you would expect, it's better suited for more casual games or more open world kind of games that are less focused on being very competitive, you know what I mean? So if you're going to be using it for that, you're going to have a really great time with these, and I definitely would recommend these guys. Cheap True Wireless earbuds are getting really good, guys. I'm telling you, this is great. I like the direction we're going in. So, you know, with that being said, if you do want to buy these, I will leave a link in the description. I think it's an affiliate link that gets me a kickback. I'm not sure, but, you know, I haven't been checking. I gotta get myself organized. But, you know, link in the description in case you do want to buy it. Anyway, if this video did help you out with your buying decision, do leave me a like, subscribe for more content, notification bell if you want to hear for more. I might just speed through this stuff next time I do reviews, but you know, there you go. So, you know, that's all you gotta know about these guys. They're really good for what they are for the price. And you know, I did mention that while you can find them for like, you know, around the $50-$60 mark, there are times I did find them on sale for $30. So if you can find that, definitely worth it. I mean, even then, if you find it for like $50, it's still very much worth it. $60, it's still worth it, but I would still try to find those sales. So if you can find it for that $30-ish, $40-ish price, all these things are golden. So, you know, be on the lookout for these things because these things are sold all over the place on the internet. So, yeah, that's it. That's all I got. So, you know the drill. I'll see you guys next time.